not these guys again.
Let me say this up front. Some movies never really leave theaters. They just wait. And this March, one of those films is officially coming home. A quarter of a century after its original release, the fantasy adventure thriller that helped define an era is returning to American cinemas for the first time in 25 years. The Mummy Returns, starring Brendan Fraser and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, is heading back to the big screen. And yes, this is exactly as big a deal as it sounds. Before we begin, would you please support me? Subscribing is free and very important to me. For better analysis and more videos, please subscribe and like. For anyone who grew up in the late 90s and early 2000s, the Mummy franchise wasn't just entertainment. It was a perfect genre cocktail. Adventure, horror, romance, comedy, and blockbuster spectacle blended into something studios have spent decades trying to replicate. The Mummy Returns arrives back in theaters this March to celebrate its 25th anniversary. And the timing feels almost poetic, because this wasn't just a sequel, it was a cultural moment. Released as the follow-up to 1999's The Mummy, the film continued the story that had already reinvented a classic. That original movie itself was a modern reimagining of the 1932 Universal monster film starring Boris Karloff, but under director Stephen Sommers, the formula changed. This wasn't slow, shadowy horror anymore. This was pulpy, globe-trotting, swashbuckling chaos. More action, more humor, more romance. And audiences showed up in massive numbers. The first film was a hit. The sequel doubled down. The Mummy Returns went on to earn an astonishing $433 million worldwide, becoming the 7th highest-grossing film of 2001. That's not just success, that's dominance. And it all started with Rick O'Connell. Brendan Fraser's Rick wasn't your typical action hero. He was brave, sure, but he was also sarcastic, reckless, and constantly one bad decision away from disaster. A former French Foreign Legionnaire who stumbled into ancient evil and somehow survived. The story picks up nearly a decade after the events of the first film. Rick and Evie are now married, living a quieter life, and raising their son Alex. But quiet has never really been their thing. Alex, brilliant and adventurous in equal measure, inherits both his parents' curiosity and their talent for trouble. And it's Alex who unknowingly sets the entire plot in motion by uncovering an artifact connected to the tomb of the Scorpion King. And that's where history was made, because this film didn't just continue a franchise, it launched a star. Dwayne Johnson's appearance as the Scorpion King marked his transition from WWF megastar to Hollywood leading man. At the time, it was a gamble. Casting a professional wrestler in a major studio sequel wasn't an obvious move, but it worked. The Scorpion King became an instant talking point, and Johnson's presence helped catapult him into mainstream stardom. Years later, during a joint appearance on Actors, Johnson publicly thanked Fraser for bringing him into the franchise. That moment says a lot, because The Mummy Returns wasn't just a blockbuster. It was a gateway for Johnson, for the genre, and for studios realizing something crucial. Audiences wanted horror and action together. They didn't want pure terror, and they didn't want mindless spectacle. They wanted balance. Stakes mixed with fun, monsters mixed with heroes you actually liked. The success of the Mummy films proved there was a massive market for exactly that combination. And for a while, Hollywood listened, but time has a way of complicating legacies. Universal's classic monster films once dominated cinema in the 1930s. Decades later, the studio attempted to revive that legacy with the Dark Universe in the 2010s. That plan didn't go as expected. The modern Mummy reboot starring Tom Cruise struggled critically, earning a notoriously low Rotten Tomatoes score. The experiment collapsed almost immediately, and that failure made fans look back. Because The Mummy Returns, while not universally adored by critics, held a far stronger reception. It embraced what it was. It never pretended to be something else. It was fun, loud, emotional, and unapologetically adventurous, which is why this re-release matters. Tickets for the 25th anniversary theatrical run went on sale February 19, 2026. For some viewers, this will be pure nostalgia, a chance to see a childhood favorite the way it was meant to be seen. For others, especially younger audiences, this will be a first experience, And that might be the most interesting part. Because modern blockbusters often feel assembled by committee, carefully engineered, carefully restrained. The Mummy Returns comes from a time when studios still took big, messy swings. The visual effects might show their age in places, but the energy doesn't. There's genuine chemistry between Fraser and Rachel Weisz. There's sincerity in the performances. There's a sense that everyone involved understood the tone they were aiming for and committed fully. It's also worth remembering that Weisz did not return for the third film, The Mummy, Tomb of the Dragon Emperor. Her absence was felt. Evie was recast, and the chemistry shifted, which makes recent news all the more intriguing. Universal has announced a full reboot of the Mummy franchise set for 2026, directed by Lee Cronin. And beyond that, a sequel planned for 2028 is expected to bring back both Fraser and Weisz as Rick and Evie. For longtime fans, that announcement felt like vindication, because sometimes the right move isn't reinvention, it's restoration. And that theme runs straight through this theatrical re-release. The Mummy Returns will officially be back in theaters on March 27, 2026. It's part of a broader trend of studios bringing legacy favorites back to the big screen, not as remakes, but as reminders. Reminders of when adventure films felt adventurous. Reminders of when heroes were allowed to be imperfect. Reminders of when monsters were scary, but the tone never forgot to have fun. Watching this film again now, knowing how the industry changed afterward, gives it new weight. It represents a crossroads, a moment when blockbuster cinema could still balance spectacle with personality. And maybe that's why this return feels earned. So whether you're revisiting Hamyonaptra with decades of memories behind you, or stepping into this world for the first time, this re-release isn't just about box office numbers. It's about legacy. Some films fade into history, others circle back. And The Mummy Returns is proof that when a movie gets the balance right, time only makes it stronger. March 27th. The sands shift once more. I'll see you at the movies. Thanks for watching. Share your thoughts in the comments. This is where these kinds of films come to life. By the way, please support me. Subscribing is free and very important to me. Please subscribe and like for better analyses and more videos. Until the next story, stay curious, be critical, keep your eyes on the screen, and remember, every film you haven't watched is a new film.